Hello everyone. Hello, my name is Moukas. I'm the Vice President from the CIA Society. I'm really excited today to introduce you to Mr. Moukas. He is the CEO of the Velti company since its inception. Since its inception in 2000. He is also a great entrepreneur, having started his career at the age of 17 years old. He holds his bachelor degree here from HED in business administration and also has 2 master degrees, one in artificial intelligence from University of Edinburgh and another one from MIT. He has authored a book in artificial intelligence and also has more than 25 publications in peer-reviewed journals. He also has 12 US patents, mostly in artificial intelligence and mobile technology. He's a frequent speaker in Bloomberg, CNBC, and NWC, also in Mobile Marketer, and sits on the global board of the Business Marketing Association. He has been voted as one of the 10 most important people in mobile by Business Insider and the global leader under 40 by Global Telecom's Business Magazine. Please welcome Mr. Moukas.
So first of all, thank you for having me. While I was listening to that, I started to visualize how my picture would look like or would sound like. I need to do some work on that. So anyways, I don't have a presentation. I will try to keep it interactive. So during, while I'm babbling, if you have any questions, just raise your hands and I'm sure we have some mic we can pass around. I do have some notes here, though, that I'm going to be going through. One. I kill this. So, I'm a geek by training. Started my training here. Just realized it was more than 20 years ago, which made me old, very old. A lot of developments since I was here at Deree. A lot of, campus looks much better. I really hope that food is much better as well compared to. Don't even know what you guys said. Is it still windy? Yeah. So a bit of background. Some of the more interesting stuff. So graduated here in '94, then. Edinburgh, where I did robotics and artificial intelligence, then MIT Media Lab and Sloan School. That gets us to 1997. So while I was working on my PhD, myself and 3 friends decided to start writing a business plan. MIT has this sort of great concept that they used to call back then the 50K business plan competition. Now it's the 100K business plan competition. So people submit business plan, the one that wins gets 50K, but more importantly, you get some love and affection from some of the top VCs out there. So remember, I was a complete sort of another geek up to that point. I had no idea what the business plan was. My 2 accounting courses here at Deree had solid C's on both. That really complemented my, I think, 2.6 CI at that point. So to plan the business plan competition, we didn't win that year. We came second. Akamai Direct Kid won. But the great news was that I think it was something like 26, 27, and suddenly had sort of VCs coming to us and say, here's $5 million to start a company. Nobody had done that to me before. I'm like, I'm going to entertain the idea of taking your $5 million and start a company. So we did that, and remember, this was sort of the late 90s. You guys are probably too young to remember this, but it was the good old days. It's like the roaring 20s, as in you were supposed to raise $5 million so you could burn it in 9 months, so you could raise $10 million on the next round, because everything was going up. Nothing, was ever going down. So I still remember a competition. They used to have parties with giraffes, live actual giraffes, the animals. So they were cool. We didn't have giraffes in our parties. So anyway, we grew the company to 150 people. Thankfully, we managed to sell it to SAP before the huge crash of 2000. And again, if you're sort of young and innocent like we were, and you only see things go up, you never realize how quickly things can go bad. How can you get from people sort of offering you term sheets about, you know, why do you close your Series E, your 5th round of financing? Here's $50 million to, well, there's no freaking way where you give you any money because the world is dying tomorrow. And that happened sort of pretty much overnight. So, pretty much sheer luck, we managed to sell our company to SAP just in time. And then we decided it was time to actually go and do the next big thing. So I'm a sort of, if you're an entrepreneur, and by the way, I'm going to be speaking about entrepreneurship today. I'm not sure if it was obvious or not my life. You're an optimist. By definition, you're an optimist. I mean, you see and you perceive things differently. You sort of wake up in the morning, the sun is shining, no matter what's happening outside. You know, it's going to be a great day today, no matter what. Because it's not really a rational thing. So the odds to get hit by lightning in your lifetime is 1 over 6,200 or so, according to the NOAA. The odds that go from an idea to an IPO is 1 over 1 million. So, if you're smart, or well, let's assume all of us are smart. If you're rational, you don't really do that. I mean, the odds are so against sort of starting something. However, if you're wired a bit differently, and I think a lot of the entrepreneurs are wired a bit differently, you're sort of crazy in different ways. I certainly have a lot of issues. Most of them are not, I'm not medicated for them, but you know. You start a company, and so in terms of starting a company, you realize that as an entrepreneur, you're good at certain things, and you're not good at others. For instance, I have terrible memory. I have complete attention deficit disorder. I mean, you better be saying something very interesting, otherwise after 30 seconds, I'm going to, be thinking about something else. And I'm not doing it on purpose. I cannot focus. Hence my lousy CI. I was never able to sit down and read something or study appropriately. So as an entrepreneur, you want to start a company, it's extremely important to surround yourself with people that actually complement you. So if I look at our chief operating officers or other sort of co-founders, they had extremely good memories. I'm completely disorganized. In order to remember things, I keep sort of huge lists of things, and then I displace the list, and then I sort of delete the wrong items. I sort of think and I have a vision about where the world is going and what we should do to sort of leave the world hopefully at some point 2 years from now, but I'm really bad in a lot of the sort of, let's call them day-to-day tasks. And that's, I mean, as an entrepreneur, it's okay to understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. And it's also very important to spend your sort of precious time and try to improve what you're good at. I mean, all of us, let's say after the age of 15 or so, it's extremely hard to change yourself and become very good at something that you're really bad at. And I'm not talking sort of competencies, I'm talking about, let's say, are you a good operating person? Can you make the trains run on time, day in, day out, for sort of 5 years in a row? That's a good operating person. If you're not that, and you're like me, for instance, it doesn't make any sense to waste your time and try to become an operating person. You should try and focus on what of your talents, enhance your talents, and make sure that you surround your people with, well, yourself with people that have sort of complementary skill sets. Now, going back to the story, when we started Velti, in starting Velti, remember that was sort of April 2000, a month after the Nasdaq crash. We said, okay, mobile is happening in Europe, not the US. US was probably 2 years behind Europe, and Europe was maybe 3 or 4 years behind Japan in mobile technology. At the time, we said, okay, we're going to start in sort of Greece, where we have great engineers. We're also going to be in London and start sell sort of our stuff there. And in starting, Velti was being my third company. In starting Velti, it was a very, very different business environment. I mean, unlike the previous sort of years, it was impossible to raise any venture financing. I remember doing pitches, something like 38 VCs, including pretty much all the VCs here. We never managed to raise a single dollar or euro out of them. Everybody was saying no. So essentially we started the company with our own money, plus a couple of business angels. And it was a very different experience because on that one, you know, we had to sell to make payroll. When you start a company, different things sort of happen. Number one, your sort of family, your friends start to never really see you. So first 3 months starting a company is easy. You don't really, you're still sort of putting things together. Then sort of month 3 to month 18 are really impossible. You're working sort of literally 20-hour days. There's just not enough time in the day to sort of accomplish things. And the other thing that changes is that you, certain sort of milestones that you were looking forward to, like sort of the end of the month where you would be directly collecting, let's say, your salary, suddenly becomes sort of a huge hurdle because suddenly you have to make payroll and you have to be paying other people. So being an entrepreneur is a huge roller coaster ride. So let me give you my example, right? So started my first company at 17, crashed and burned at 19. Second company at 25 or so, sold it to SAP by 27. Started Velti in 2000, IPO'd in London in 2006. I built in NASDAQ 2011, and I was 39. Crashed and burned, almost crashed and burned 3 years later now, and I was sort of, you know, restarting. So you have to have the stomach for it. You have to be able to sort of get up, I mean, roll with the punches, right? Try your best, but I don't know of any successful entrepreneur that has not failed at least twice in their lives. And they have failed miserably. And failure is, you have to be able, again, if you're not sort of the optimist, and if you're not sort of good with yourself, it's really hard sometimes to tolerate failure, especially in a country like Greece, where we're not, I'm going to talk about sort of Greece and entrepreneurship in just a bit, but for instance, you know, in Greece, it's not just the social aspect, right? You fail in Greece as an entrepreneur, you go to jail. Personal criminal liability against anything that the company owes to the public sector. You're done. It's not, it's a really high hurdle and requires a certain level of, let's say, cojones to make sure that you can, we're still recording this, in order to make it. So, there has been sort of multiple instances, and I still remember sort of 2 or 3 days before Christmas, I was lying on the floor, looking at my ceiling and my office, I'm like, freak, there's no freaking way we're making payroll. We have sort of 3 days to go, there's no way. I mean, we're done, we tried everything. And you still have to sort of get up, go out there, go talk to customers, you know, beg, borrow, or steal to make sure that you do that. Because suddenly, at that point, we had sort of, you know, 20 people, 20 families sort of depending on us, and they're looking up to me like, is there going to be a turkey on my table for Christmas or not? And then later it becomes sort of at a much larger scale when we had 1,200 families sort of across the globe. Now, a couple of key things about, some additional key things about sort of entrepreneurship. It's hiring, it's extremely important to surround yourself with sort of the right people. And the right people are not necessarily people that are like you, they're most likely people that are not like you, that complement you in sort of interesting ways. The first rule of thumb is always hire people smarter than you. I mean, it's not hard. I've been doing it all my life. It's like you look at somebody, like, you're freaking smart, you're hired. Extremely important. So, hire the smart people. Don't hire the assholes, even if they're smart. I mean, they're going to destroy your company's culture. If somebody's a jerk, you know, life is too short. You know, at least I'm starting companies because, you know, it's fun to start something new. It's fun to go, wake up in the morning, and go there and be happy. If you're waking up in the morning, it's like, I'm going to be that jerk again. No, life is too short. Hire the smart people, but also hire people that complement the culture, that match the culture, and, you know, say no to jerks. Number 2, I've been speaking with a lot of folks, and everybody's fixated right now around sort of what is the valuation that somebody's. Nice. There's a picture. My ADD. So So and I have people sort of get fixated on valuations. Okay, I'm going to start a company. What should be my sort of valuation? How much money are the VCs or the agents are going to give me? I used to do that a lot. Don't fixate on in terms of valuations. You know, I've raised something like 8 private rounds of financing, 3 public rounds. I really raised something like $450 million in my life. Looking back, I never regret a single round. If they offer you money and you can raise money, get the money and run. You will need the money. Don't spend it though. Raise it. Don't spend it. The problem with entrepreneurs being so optimistic is the reality is very distorted. So chances are, no matter how quickly you think the market is going to be there to meet you, you're probably 18 months to 2 years ahead of the market. It always takes longer for things to develop. And it always takes longer for new things to develop. So take your time, test your product, your service, your whatever, but don't spend your money and save your money, because when you think you're going to have 10 customers, you're really probably going to have 2. And if you don't have cash, you're going to die. The only reason that companies go under is because they run out of money. There's no other reason. I mean, cash flow. And it took me, as I mentioned, I had 2 C's in accounting, and I wish I was paying more attention, but the one thing, when I look at sort of business or whatever, the one thing I look at is cash flow. I really don't look at balances, because a company that really no assets. I really don't look at sort of P&L, because who knows how they recognize the revenue, but I really look at cash flow. How much money goes in, how long does it take for your customers to pay you? So if you're going to start a company, do not run out of money. I know it sounds simple, but the typical entrepreneur is way too freaking optimistic for reality, which means that reality is never as good as they think, which means that the market is never there, developed enough, which means that they go under. And that's the problem, because most of the sort of high-tech, fast-growing companies are growing very fast. Companies that are sort of on a steady state, it's really hard to run out of money. The problem with sort of high-tech companies, they grow very fast. You have to hire ahead of the curve, and then you expect something to happen. So if that thing doesn't happen, you're done. So raise as much money as you can. Do not run out of money. Again, guys, I know it sounds simple, but it's not. So, what else? Okay, another thing. There are tons of people that, especially young folks, I would say especially Greeks, that everybody thinks they have an idea, and it's this amazing idea, and they can't really sort of talk to me about it because somebody's going to steal it. It's imperative to talk about your ideas to as many people as possible. I mean, don't be paranoid about ideas or patents. I have a dozen patents in the US and Japan, whatever. They're irrelevant. It doesn't matter. The one thing that matters is execution. How do you try out your idea? How do you launch your service or your product as fast as possible? How do you make mistakes quickly? And how do you very quickly correct your mistakes? Adjust your business plan and move forward. There's no way you're going to come up with a concept or an idea that's going to be exactly what you do when, the first sort of few months are over. So it's very important to make mistakes early. It's very important to understand your mistakes. It's very important to look at the mirror and say, wow, that was really stupid of me, but I understand why this was stupid, so let me correct myself. Again, the most successful entrepreneurs I know, they're very good at making mistakes very quickly. They're very good at correcting these mistakes very quickly. It's extremely hard to design something in a vacuum and say, oh, I have this great vision about the world, and this is where the world's going to be in 2 years. It's not. You're not that smart. Nobody is. I mean, so try out things, make mistakes, try to recover quickly. Another important thing is you have to learn to say no. When you start a company, there are so many things you could be doing. There are so many things you could apply your product, your service, your technology to. Lots of problems out there in the world, either real or perceived. It's very important to understand what are the ones that make sense to attack, and very important to focus and learn to say no. A lot of times, looking back at most of the mistakes I made, have to do with focus. You try to do too much at the same time. And it's very hard for somebody to be very good at too many things at the same time. It happens sometimes, but it's really rare. And entrepreneurship is really a game of probabilities. Make sure that you can sort of improve at every stage of probability to reach the next level. And again, the problem with entrepreneurs is that it goes back to that optimism. And that optimism also builds sometimes a healthy ego. Again, a lot of the guys I know, they're like the king of the world. And life can be very humbling. That's the great thing about life. There are ups and there are downs, and you have to make sure that you're humble at the top and you're more humble at the bottom. I still remember we're starting a joint venture in India. So I hadn't been to our office, we had office in, we're obviously like 3 or 4 places in India. So I've been to Delhi and Mumbai a bunch of times, but never to our Chennai office. So I go there. There's a sort of a little girl with giving me flowers, like, welcome Mr. Moukas, our CEO. It's like, I like this, should be here more often. They don't do that in Palo Alto. Nobody's waiting for me. So we start building up this sort of expectation. Then I went to sort of Deree again, and we're starting a joint venture with Hindustan Times. So each of the 2 parties, Velti and Hindustan Times, were supposed to get up there and sort of present their company. So we started with our sort of typical West Coast hiring. It's Velti, I started with I'm the founder, we're amazing, we're growing, yada. Then an elder gentleman from Hindustan Times get up there, there's no presentation. The guy says, hi, we're Hindustan Times. We're founded in 1912 by Mahatma Gandhi. That was a humbling experience, right? So sometimes we forget that life, in sort of game theoretical terms, it's an iterative game, right? There are a lot of iterations out there. You have to make sure that you sort of keep going, keep your sort of feet on the ground and keep improving. Otherwise, bad things happen. A few more things. The Greek environment. We talk about sort of Greek environment and failure, right? And it's tough. But there, on the positive side, there are a lot of things that are very, very different today than what they were sort of 15 years ago. So first of all, you have some very legitimate venture capitalists out there in Greece. They're not sort of US level risk VCs, meaning they're not willing to spend for every $10 they spend or for every 10 companies they invest in to have maybe a third of them fail spectacularly, maybe 5 or 6 be on a steady state comatose zone, and maybe have 1 or 2 sort of home runs. They're willing to maybe lose money on 1 or 2, but that's sort of much better. So there's a lot of investment that's happening right now, both on the business angel community and the VC community in Greece. That's great. The other thing that has happened is that there are a lot of sort of similar examples of companies that have made it. At least especially in the technology sector that I follow. There are probably a couple of dozen companies out there that primarily sort of export their products because the Greek market is quite small. They're employing sort of software engineers here, and they go out there and they do the right thing. And nobody really talks about that. A friend of mine, there's this sort of association of Greek sort of companies that work on mobile technologies. Believe it or not, we export every year 700 million euros worth of mobile technology from Greece. We also export around 300 million of freaking olive oil from Greece. Everybody talks about the olive oil. It's olive oil, olive oil, olive oil. We need to change our mentality. And the good thing is that the society is changing. There are great companies out there that are doing sort of great work, and they're doing that work selling to international customers. And that's we're in a much, much better place right now. The other thing that has changed is that, especially in technology, it's sort of barriers to entry is much lower. And for starting a company, that's a good thing. Meaning that, 15, 20 years ago, unless you were close to Silicon Valley, there was no way you would be sort of close to the forefront of technology. You had to be there. That's where the action was happening. Now with, let's say, the different types of sort of smartphones and the app ecosystem, you can really sort of launch an app, and if you're really lucky, and if it's really good, you can suddenly have sort of 1 million people downloading it. So there's an amazing sort of both distribution channel out there, and there's a lot of sort of existing infrastructure that you can piggyback on. Why on earth write your own, let's say, login routines to your app when people can log in with, let's say, Facebook? So a lot of the building blocks are there, which means that the right entrepreneur with the right sort of idea that has a sort of singular focus on product can build something that can be launched sort of globally from their living room. That really was not possible a few years back. Once you launch, of course, because there's so low barriers to entry, everybody can screw. But that's a different discussion. Starting a company, starting and launching an idea and trying out things has become sort of much easier. The other thing in terms of technology that we have in Greece is we have great people in terms of analytical thinking and software capabilities. And the process improved a lot. When we started hiring people maybe 15 years ago, there were a lot of great software scientists, not so many software engineers. I mean, people were trained to build something over 6 months or over 2 years. It was an EU project that maybe worked for half an hour when the EU guy looked at it, and then it would go to the trash. Whereas we're looking for something completely different. We're looking for people that can work together in teams of 15 or 20 or 25, can launch something in 1 or 2 months that would be running for a couple of years. So in our typical hire, we were training, I would say, our folks for maybe 3 months, primarily on process and working together with others. On the algorithms themselves, they were brilliant. But in terms of cooperating with other people, they need a lot of training. And again, our talent is amazing. We have this sort of exchange program where somebody can apply to go to different Velti offices around the world, and we have sent now maybe, we loaded maybe 25 people a year, and they go from here, let's say, to San Francisco, or to New York, or to Atlanta, or sometimes to our Beijing office. And what we have found, I mean, these guys go there, and they say, oh my God, I'm speaking with Google engineers, I'm speaking with Facebook engineers, and they're like, humans like us. I'm better than them. It's like, yeah, we have people that are actually extremely good at what they do, for one reason or another, sort of here in Greece. I mean, we do try to hire. Again, hiring is it takes so much time, but it's one of the most important things you could be doing at your company. I mean, every year we receive something like 20,000 resumes. We do maybe 500 interviews. You might hire 100 people. We're very, very, very selective, but we're really proud of our people, and we're really proud about the work they're doing, and they can really sort of stand up out there on a world-class level. The only thing they need is some sort of better training on what it takes to write world-class software, which is in any case it's really hard to get from usually a sort of a college or a university setting. That's more of a real world thing. What else? How much time do I have? Time check.
We should allow some time for questions and answers, so we can start.
Okay, that means. For that.
I would be polite.
Okay. Yeah, got that. So somebody asked me just now about sort of business plans. How important is a business plan sort of raising money? It's extremely important. It's extremely important, at least for me. I mean, I make a lot of angel investments. It's really important for me to see how somebody thinks, and you can tell from a business plan. I really never look at 3 or, God forbid, 5-year projections. Everything looks like this. It's a hockey stick. We're worth nothing now, but we're going to worth gazillions in a few years, and it's a huge market. I mean, I know you guys are making up these numbers. Everybody does. It's very hard to project 5 years out. However, it's very important to look what the document looks like, what the quality of the document is, how somebody is writing, what are the parameters that they're sort of looking at in terms of modeling the business, how much they understand, let's call them in a Ramsfield way, the known unknowns. Things that you know are out there, but you have no idea how to model them. Unknown unknowns it's a different thing. So, whether they're, God forbid, any spelling mistakes in the document. For me, a business plan looks like, I mean, it's a leading indicator of what your sales presentation would look like. If they suck, nobody's going to buy from you. So, I don't really look at the numbers, but I do look at sort of business plans in terms of what something would look like. And at the end of the day, remember, I really don't know of many successful companies that have not changed their plans at least 3 or 4 times during the first 18 months to 2 years. Again, it's very hard to predict things. In a vacuum, once you try out things, you have to change course. So at the end of the day, the most successful investors I know, they always invest in people. I mean, the plan is going to change, but if somebody has the sort of the guts and the sparkle in the eye, that's the person that at least I invest in. And at the end of the day, I think it's also important to look for committed people. Commitment is one of the most important things. Starting a commerce, not like you can have on the side, oh, I'm doing this and then I'm doing something else, and then no, it's for better or for worse, it has to be your life. That's why people would invest in you. I mean, it's like that old saying about the ham and eggs breakfast. The chicken was involved, but the pig was committed. And you have to be committed. So, I'll take up the questions.
Thank you.
So, questions please? For Mr. Moukas, we have one more minute.
Well, thank you very much for this absorbing presentation. What I would like to ask is, you mentioned, of course, that an entrepreneur starts with optimism and commitment has to be there and singular focus. But I was wondering, does luck play a conspicuous role? Is luck in the equation?
Of course. I mean, I'd rather always be lucky than good, right? And every single time. Luck is extremely important. However, remember that you make your own luck. I mean, another thing that has been interesting, if I look at sort of the major breakthroughs of the companies that I've been involved in, you never really know where they're going to come from. And you have to sort of relentlessly be, you have to be very resilient and relentlessly follow every single lead. There's a random guy that you met at dinner that somebody knows somebody that was our first, multi-million contract with Vodafone Global for a company out of Greece. So when I say you make your own luck, I absolutely, luck is very sort of important, but in my mind, unless you believe in other forces, luck is somewhat random. And if you don't change your behavior to sort of make the most of your odds, nothing really happens. Some things are going to go one way, some things are going to break another way. But it's really important to make your own luck. So how do you make your own luck? Be paranoid and follow up on every single thing. I mean, you never know where a positive development is going to come from. In terms of hiring somebody, or closing sort of a business, or doing a joint venture, or raising money, you never know. So yes, you have to be lucky, you have to be complicated.
Other questions?
Oh, and by the way, you also have to be very, when you're on the ground, right, because you've been unlucky multiple times, you have to be ready to sort of stand up and go out to sort of fight again.
I want to ask you exactly about that.
Yeah.
To elaborate a little bit. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt and taking the floor, but it is very much related to what you were saying. I have interviewed many entrepreneurs, and they tell me that they deliberately choose to be naive because even they were taking into account all the risks, they never do anything. So when they reach the point of desperation, they're faced with reality.
Well,
how do they come out of that? What do they do? And if something like that has happened to you?
I think that their brain chemistry is a bit screwed up. Maybe something with the neurotransmitters. But to answer your question, yes, it's very. You can either sort of choose to be naive, or in my case, I don't know, I'm just optimistic, right? You tell me I have a 1% success rate or 1 in 100 success rate. Oh, great, it's going to be me. So let's get going. We have 2 months to make that happen. So in terms of getting up, look, it's not easy, right? You're talking to a guy that his market cap was 1.4 billion. Right now it's sort of 0, and I hope it's going to be something at some point in the future. life can be a very, very humbling experience, and you have to have good days and you have bad days. But at the end of the day, you know, you have a responsibility to the people that, you know, all the stakeholders, right? Your sort of employees, your investors, your customers, are, you know, get out of bed and make something happen. It's not, you know, have there been days where I'm not my sort of optimistic usual self? Yes, more I would say in the last year than my previous life when I lost something like so 20 pounds in 6 months without dieting, but I'm getting ready for the summer now. But look, you have to get up, and I think that's part of sort of how people are wired again. They sort of see an opportunity, and they're also the best entrepreneurs I know are very good in sort of adapting change. They don't think about the past. They don't think about things that can happen or they can't control anymore. They think about how they could. Well, you're thinking, oh my God, how could I screw it up so badly in such a short period of time? And then you sort of try to understand what you did wrong, and then you try to improve it. But there's a lot of introspection. I mean. Oh, sorry, yeah, I think we had that question.
I have a question. The important, what really impressed with your presentation is how did you manage to fund your ideas? I mean, most of us, we're business students, we have some plans, some dreams for our lives, people have some ideas in some cases, but the most difficult part is to get started and convince people to invest in business.
It's a good question, right? So first of all, I get most of my ideas by talking to other people. I got a lot of my ideas by sort of talking to investors while I'm making the case. I'm like, God, I just thought of that in real time. That's interesting. Let me write it down. So talk to as many people. It goes back to sort of, you have to talk to as many people as possible. At any given point, there are probably 100 other people that have the same amazing idea that you have around the world. What's going to make the difference is execution. Can you be the first that actually does something about it, try something, make the mistakes 3 months ahead of the other guy? And because these sort of growth curves or exponential curves, if you make the mistakes 3 months ahead of the other sort of guy or girl, I guess, 6 months from now or a year from now, you're going to have such a huge sort of difference they would never be able to catch up. The game would be over and they won't even know, because scale is important. So again, it's not so much about the idea, it's about sort of making sure that you can apply your idea in a practical setting, talk out to people, launch your idea in any way, shape or form. Again, going to somebody, an investor, and convincing them, right? For me, it was always much easier to do that when I had something a bit more concrete on my hands. And I'm not talking about your VC that says, oh, I'm going to wait to invest in you until you're profitable. It's like, if I'm profitable, I'm going to need your freaking money, right? We'll be having this conversation. But I'm talking about, don't just have a plan. Have a, you know, if you're not technology, have a mock-up. When I hire my UX designers, my software user interface designers, and my software engineers, this is the mock-up of my software. This is what it's going to look like for the typical consumer, and this is why it's so amazingly different than anything else out there. Look at your competencies and the competencies of your sort of friends around you, because sometimes it's really hard to start a company by yourself. I mean, if you're 2 or 3 of you, yes, you're divided the pie by 3 or whatever, unless you're a very good negotiator, you screw the other 2 guys. And there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that are doing that, right? I mean, if you look at the history of technology, probably half the guys out there screwed their co-founders one way or another, but that's a separate discussion. So you have to hire good lawyers. But in any case, try to make some sort of partners with complementary skills, try to sort of build something, doesn't matter what, right? You can have a plan, you can have some mock-ups, you can talk to 5 prospective customers. The more meat you can put around the bones, the better off you're going to be. And try to sign up for sort of, there are tons of, there are tons of mentorship programs, even in Greece right now. Try to find a mentor that has done it before. I mean, it's really hard for, I mean, I don't think I've ever invested, no, I've done maybe 2 investments in people that have not started companies that failed before in their lives. I try to always invest in people that have tried out something before and preferably failed. If they haven't failed, they don't need my money.
Okay, we have 2 more questions. Dr. Kasoulis, short question.
Thank you very much for a dynamic presentation and performance. And thank you for sharing
You're looking my good side.
Thank you for sharing advice and tips to our students. I hope that they will use them at some point. On a different note, we have read in the press recently that Velti is facing some financial difficulties in the US. Can you tell us, can you share the story behind that with us?
Well, not really. Not in too many details, right? Because there are a lot of, they're probably, I'm advised against it right now. What I can say is the following. So it goes back to, we essentially run out of money. We were forced to sell certain of our assets and eventually frankly the whole company to Blackstone. Well, actually, we really ran out of money. Our main bank, HSBC, had a loan with them, $57 million, and they called the loan. Unexpectedly, somebody would say. They screwed us. Well, don't get me wrong. We put in ourselves in a position to get screwed, and then they screwed us. And never run out of money. Raise as much money as you can, keep the money. So yeah. I would love to. I really would love to. It's a great story.
Hello.
Oh,
I'm also graduated with Greek of Deree a long time ago. My experience in life after Deree says that in Greece it's very difficult for Greeks to work in teams and groups. Would you like to comment on that? I'm not talking about the Deree environment. I'm talking about the average Greek.
Yeah, I mean,
or he will get your idea, or he will get your idea, do it himself, and screw you up.
Yeah, but you know what? If they can just get your idea and do it themselves, well, they're better than you, right? So one way or another, before they execute it.
They have better information, maybe, or maybe you are.
Perhaps.
You have joined polite society, and that was.
Of course. I mean, look, the world is not fair, right? So. Life's a beast, etc. But what I would say is the following. You're absolutely right. A lot of times, it's hard to convince people that they should be open, they should be talking to each other. And we, in our case, we try to do a variety of ways. So number one, we had sort of quite advanced video conferencing, high-definition video conference across a lot of our offices. A lot of sort of corporate instant messaging and presence. We're never as advanced to go for the gentleman who was over there, previous presentation. The gamification side, let's say on our internet, but we spent a lot of effort, time, and money to make sure that people would be collaborative. I mean, information was sort of pretty much open. Everything would be posted on the intranet, and everybody would have access to everything. The only thing that we wouldn't have access to is sort of our upcoming sort of quarterly result. But everything else was sort of, we were open kimonos. And it takes sort of, it's very important to build a culture that's like this, because information needs to be shared, and a lot of times that information is hanging, right? Our sales guys hated it when we put up their sort of meeting report, when the customer said, you guys were lousy, that's a lousy presentation, and we're not going to buy it from you. But you know what? The organization needs to know, because that's the only way that the organization can get better. It's not the sales guys' problem, right? It might have been the pre-sales guys' problem, might have been the engineers' problem for building sort of lousy features. The organization needs to work as one, and sort of sharing information is critical. And you're absolutely right that I would say in Greece and in India, we have the less information sharing as that was built in the culture, I would say the local culture. But you can train people, and actually people love information, right? As long as you show them that everybody's playing under the same rules. We're not trying to, make you look bad. There's this sort of huge risk of public sort of embarrassment that exists, and it's like, when it happens to everybody, that's not there anymore. People understand that when information is out there, everybody tries to improve themselves. And the problem is that you always have some kind of politics, and when you have politics and people building their own sort of side empires, they try to keep sort of secret. But it's important to build a culture and sort of not to tolerate. It goes back to my earlier comment, do not hire terrorists. They're not good for your health. Or the comments of the matter.
Okay, Mr. Moukas, thank you very much for your presentation.
take your seats because we have already the next speaker coming in. Thank you very much.